So this nurse kind of goes crazy and just starts killing her patients. Now the nurse's name is Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is around 40 years old when this story starts, and she's living in Ontario, Canada. Now Elizabeth, she's got all kinds of problems. She's struggling with addiction issues and relationship issues and mental health issues. Life is just not going well for her. But then, one day in 2007, she gets a little bit of hope. She gets hired at a nursing home to take care of elderly people. And this is great for her. I mean, it's a good job with good pay. However, a few days after being hired, things start to go south. Because Elizabeth, she's taking care of this 87-year-old dementia patient, and suddenly she starts hearing a voice. She's thinking, oh, maybe this is like a demon, or maybe this is some sort of god. But this voice is telling her to kill this patient. And so Elizabeth gets an insulin pen and she injects the patient with a really high dose of insulin. Then she leaves the room and she kind of just leaves her there to die. Now the other nurses, they notice something's wrong with this patient and they stabilize her, and luckily she ends up surviving. And of course, no one suspects Elizabeth did anything wrong, plus the patient has dementia, so it's not like she can snitch. So then Elizabeth decides to do it again. One day at work, she's working with another elderly patient with Alzheimer's, and Elizabeth, she finds this patient really annoying. Like, he doesn't know where he is, he's been calling out for his wife all night. It's actually really sad. But Elizabeth starts getting that feeling again, that devil talking to her, or however she describes it, and so she gets an insulin pen, and she comes back, and she injects the guy with 50 units of insulin, which is actually double the dose of the last time that she tried to kill a patient. The next day, the staff finds this man passed away in his bed. And again, no one sees anything out of the ordinary. Elderly patients pass away all the time, so no one suspects Elizabeth. So a few months later, she does it yet again. She unalives another patient in the exact same way as the previous one. But then, she stops. Like, no more murders for a while. However, that doesn't stop her from talking about it. Like, she feels like she's just gotta tell people. Like, one day she confesses to her girlfriend, just like randomly, like, hey, I killed 2 people at work. And her girlfriend is like, yeah, don't do that again or I'll call the police. And that's just kind of the end of the conversation. Like, it just never comes up again. Weird asses. Elizabeth also confesses to a nursing student what she did. But when the nursing student threatens to report her, Elizabeth convinces her that no one will believe her. So the nursing student ends up not reporting the confession to anyone. And about 2 years go by. Elizabeth decides to get back in the game. So she's back at work taking care of a dementia patient, and this patient is apparently being difficult and stubborn and refusing to take her meds and all that. So Elizabeth starts feeling that anger or hearing those devil voices or whatever it is, and that is when she snaps. And she gives this woman an overdose of insulin, and the woman dies. A few weeks later, Elizabeth does it again. And this patient isn't being difficult or doing anything wrong at all. But Elizabeth sees her laying there quietly, and she feels like she needs to die. So later that night, she injects her with a massive dose of insulin, and that's it for her. While all this is happening, Elizabeth feels a lot of pressure from her job. I guess she finds it stressful to be in charge of so many patients. So to help her with the stress, she turns to painkillers. How does she get these painkillers? Well, she starts stealing them from work. Like, she'll steal them from the drug supply, sometimes she'll steal them from her own patients, sometimes she'll steal them from dead patients. But she gets her drugs, and they relax her and they get her through her shift. And about 2 more years go by, and it's now 2013. And once again, her weird anger issues, devil voices thing comes back and starts telling her to kill again. And she decides to unalive another patient at work. So she injects this 90-year-old patient with insulin multiple times. And she gives her a bunch of insulin. In fact, she gives her so much that this patient starts to have a seizure before she, unfortunately, dies. So this death, I think due to the seizure of it all, is actually a traumatic experience for Elizabeth, and she finally starts to feel guilty about what she's been doing. So she drives to her pastor's house, because I guess she's religious. So she's at this pastor's house, sitting at his kitchen table, talking to him and his wife, and she confesses yet again to what she did. I guess she's like, I just killed someone with insulin. And the pastor and his wife, they aren't sure whether to believe her. So instead of reporting her, they decide to just pray for her and tell her, if you murder anyone else, we're going to report you to the police. And that's it. Elizabeth leaves, and I guess they just forget about it from there. But then, in 2014, boom, the nursing home finally fires her. But not for killing patients. She actually had a record of showing up to work drunk. She was suspended from the job 4 times for medication-related errors, and then she got caught giving the wrong medication to a patient. She's apparently a whole-ass mess, so the place fires her. But whatever, that's not gonna stop Elizabeth, because she's still got those weird devil voices going on in her head. So she gets a few gigs, working part-time at some other elderly care facilities and at one patient's home. And at some of these places, she, of course, unalives 3 more patients with insulin. Now, at one point, she's working at a care facility, and a pharmacist delivers 4 bags of painkillers to the place. And Elizabeth is the one to accept them. Now, she's not about to let these painkillers go to waste. No. So she doesn't log them as received, and instead she takes them home, and she takes a bunch of them, and she actually ends up overdosing, and she ends up in the hospital. And because of this overdose, she decides to quit nursing completely, and she checks herself into a rehab for a while. After rehab, she gets offered a new job at a school program to work with school-aged children who have diabetes. And to be fair, Elizabeth does have a lot of experience with insulin. Now, I don't know where this woman's morals lie, because, she keeps murdering elderly people, but she also does appear to have some sort of guilty conscience. And she actually gets worried that if she works around these diabetic kids, that she won't be able to control her impulses and that she might hurt one of the kids. And so, luckily, she passes on this job offer. And she decides to confess again. This time, she goes and talks to a lawyer. And I guess she's like, I killed a bunch of people. What do I do? And the lawyer's like, take your secrets to the grave, lady. So that doesn't work. So then she calls Narcotics Anonymous and says, I killed a bunch of people. What do I do? But I guess they don't believe her either. So no one believes her. But then in 2016, she checks herself into rehab again. And this time she's determined to get someone to believe her. So for the next 20 days while she's there, she confesses her crimes to anyone who will listen. Patients, assistants, the psychiatrist, and the staff finally reports her to police, which is exactly what she wanted. And so, bam, she gets arrested. And I don't have a mugshot, but here is a picture of her getting arrested. And ultimately, she pleads guilty to murdering 8 people, and she's sentenced to life in prison.